YouTube, what is going on? Crowder here, and I am bringing you the how to have better aim or perfect aim in Warzone tips and tricks video. If you guys watched the MW3 one that I posted on my channel, you basically got most of this covered, but for you new Warzone guys that are trying to get better at Call of Duty, you came to the right place. With that being said, I am here to show you everything that you need to know when it comes to just settings and tips and tricks on how to get your aim better and all of that stuff. But I'm going to redo this part. So I already did this video, but I'm redoing this part right now. So I'm going to have a different shirt on during this. But then obviously after is the rest of the stuff. I just didn't like how I kind of explained this part of the video. So I'm redoing this to give you a better explanation of all this content. And really quick with the settings, we're going to be talking about your aiming and your controller settings. And that is the most important because if you have good controller settings, everything I'm about to show you in this video, you can obviously perform better. So starting off with the important ones, we are going to go down to your dead zone inputs over here in the controller tab. And your dead zone inputs, if you click square and it shows more, you're going to see left stick minimum, all this crazy confusing stuff. This stuff is not as confusing as you think it is, but I'm going to explain to you so you know what you're doing, so you can obviously just have a better understanding of why you're doing all this stuff and just not copying and pasting what I'm telling you to do, because that's not going to help you in the future. But okay, we're going to start off with the left stick minimum. So the minimum of a dead zone, the minimum like right stick and the left stick, is basically your minimum threshold to get your controller to respond to you, right? So if you do the test stick right here, right? And you can see this big red circle around the L. This all means, this circle is that when you're using the left stick and you push it up, it's going to take all the way up there to basically start responding. If it's in the red, it's not going to respond. It's going to make your controller feel less responsive and delayed. So when you're using your left stick with what I'm going to show you with aim assist and just basically strafing and moving while shooting, you want it to be very responsive. Not so responsive that the controller is moving on its own, but you want it to be responding to you as fast as possible because it's going to be very important. So when you are on the left stick, you know, your minimums and your maximums, you want to try and get this as low as possible. Anywhere from about 5 to 0 is really, really good. But depending on controllers, they will have stick drift, right? So you're going to want to make sure that you have the right one like for you. So go all the way down to 0 and just keep bumping it up to see if you have stick drift. Usually it's good around the 3, 4, or 5 area. Maybe 6 or 7 if you have to really get that high. It's not the end of the world though. I promise you, around anywhere from the 3 to the 7, you'll be good, but make sure it's lower because it's going to be nicer to obviously make sure you can hit those sprints and those movements and stuff that I'm going to teach you on this channel a little bit easier. So that's your minimum stick for your left. And now we're going to move over here to the left stick max. And the left stick max is kind of the opposite. You can see the big red circle here. That is basically when your left stick gets all the way to here, it is hitting its maximum speed, and you don't have to actually go all the way to the right side here. If I go to my test stick dead zone again and I turn it on, you can see on my right one, I have to go all the way out there to hit my right maximum. That's a good thing because it's the aiming control. It's a lot different. It's your aiming thumb. But on your left thumb, when you're trying to obviously strafe back and forth or move as fast as possible, you don't want to have to go all the way to the right stick side like I was just showing you. You want to just basically go as little as possible. But you have to remember, you can't go too low on the maximum because then your controller is going to get all out of whack. So try and get this number to as low as you possibly can, but at the same time, make sure it's not too low where your controller is all out of whack. So I would recommend 65 is really, really, really low. But even if you go from 100 to 85, it's just that little help that actually might just help your movement out a little bit, and it does go a long way. So I recommend the left stick maximum anywhere from a 65 to like that 85 or anything less than 100 if you could. But that's basically that for your left sticks. Now, if you move over to your right stick, you're going to see that I have mine a little bit higher than the normal player that you would see. Now, Celium, who is an Atlanta FaZe pro player, he plays on like 7 or 8 right stick minimum, and there are some pro players that play a little bit higher. There are some pro players that play a little bit lower. All it comes down to with the right stick is that sometimes I think people just tell you to put it as low as possible, like I kind of just said with the left one. But I think the right stick is a little bit different because when you're aiming on controller, especially people that aren't super, super talented, you know, like not everyone's really cracked the video games that are just like, you know, gods at games. Sometimes the more responsive the right stick, you're almost not good enough to control that right stick dead zone. It might feel good, but you actually might be over aiming sometimes, in my opinion. So even I play on like 6 or 7. Some of the best players in the world play on higher. They also do play on lower. But again, if you're comparing yourself to a pro player in that sense, I mean, I'm not as good as Celium, you know? So there's some times where it's like I don't even think I could play on the lower one. So it just really depends on what you're comfortable with. But at the end of the day, I don't want you guys just watching a video and slap in, you know, someone tells you to put it all the way to 2 or 0 and do that just because you want to do that. Like, make sure you really test out. Like, I would say a 3 is a good one. And then if you don't really like that or you think it's still a little bit too sensitive, go to a 6. And then I would say go to like an 8 or a 9 absolute max though. And then once you start getting past the 8 or a 9, I think it's becoming a little bit delayed. Or if you have stick drift with that, then your controller's probably messed up. So I wouldn't be scared to do a higher than 0, 1, or 2. I play on 6 personally. But again, find your sweet spot from anywhere from like the 9 to the 3 area, and I think you'll be good to go. We don't touch the right stick maximum because we don't want any of that with the right stick aiming. And then the left trigger dead zones and the right trigger dead zones, you want your gun to fire as fast as possible. So as soon as you react and you hit the trigger, you want to be aiming in and shooting as fast as possible. As simple as that. Now moving over to the horizontal and aiming sensitivities and all that stuff. Stick sensitivity is 6.6. You can definitely play on a little bit higher. I would recommend if you're going to change anything, you leave the vertical sensitivity slower and you go up to something like 10 or anything like that. So when you're on a boots on the ground game and people are running across your screen, horizontally you could follow them faster, but when you're going up and down, it almost like kind of keeps your horizontal a little bit more flat just because it's slower vertically. So that's also a nice thing you can do. But again, I play on 6.6 in this game. I played on 10.6 in MW2. This game just feels a little bit different. So I do like the 6.6. And then the ADS multiplier, all you have to do for this is 6 times 0.9, and that would be your ADS speed. If you want to obviously have it at 6.1, you can do that. You can do 6.8. Anything that makes you feel comfortable when you're aimed down sight, you're going to slow down. So you can slow down, you can be fast from the hip, and then slow down and be a little bit more precise. Find what works for you. I love 6.9. I really recommend this. Even being a sweaty player like myself, I do think this is probably one of the best sensitivities for a casual player as well. So I would recommend trying this out, especially in Warzone. Those longer range gunfights, they're going to be really, really important. Something about slowing down that ADS in Warzone just feels right. Then other than that, in the aiming category, none of this really matters. Aim assist definitely matters. Make sure that's turned on. Aim assist type, you can use Black Ops, you can use default. Those are the two that I would use. Some of the best players in the world use default. Some of the best players in the world use Black Ops. I like Black Ops because I think it's a little bit more sticky up close. People say they nerfed it back then. But again, I promise you, I've seen some of the best pro players in the world play on Black Ops and Fry. So this is more of just like what you prefer. I play on Black Ops. I would recommend trying both and just seeing what works out for you. And then other than that, that is basically it for this. And of course, you have the aim response curve. I almost forgot about that. But the aim response curve is also important. So now when you look at these response curves, you have 3 of them: standard, linear, and dynamic. Most players are going to tell you to play on dynamic because you absolutely have to play on dynamic. If you don't play on dynamic, you're going to stink. That's not true. Dynamic is probably the most advantageous for the advanced aimer, and the reason why is basically when you play on dynamic, the linear curve, you start from basically being fast and then you slow down a little bit. Like, you know, you can like kind of be snappy and slow to whatever your sensitivity is. So you could be a little bit snappy and it's like the fast to slow feeling that makes you feel really, really cracked. That is really nice, but at the same time, some of you guys don't want to be snappy and cracked. And like when you watch some of these, your favorite streamers or myself or anyone, you don't always have to resemble someone's gameplay to be a good player or get better at aiming. Again, if you were just trying to have some fun or get a little bit better, you could still be really good at standard. There are World Series of Warzone winners, Shifty, and other people that play on standard. I've watched Simp, who is one of the best players in the league of all time. He played on standard in MW 2019, and he was really good. So, like, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to use dynamic, but I do think dynamic is the best. But regardless of that, I would still try out standard, and standard starts basically from slow and then ramps up to that speed that your sensitivity is at. It's really, really good. Linear is consistent the whole way through. I don't recommend linear basically for anyone. I tried it. It's not that good. But yeah, we're back on this. And then the last thing I'm going to show you guys is your graphics or your gameplay settings. This is all basically movement stuff right now. I'm just going to scroll through this really quick. You can just kind of pause here if you really need any of this right now. None of this matters too much for aiming. But again, you can just kind of scroll through that if you want. And then the last thing, that the reason why I'm redoing this is I actually left this out, and this is so important that I'm redoing a part of this video for you guys to make sure I'm giving you the correct info, is you go to your graphics, you go to your quality, and you go to your view, and then you go to your field of view. Field of view is very important for visual recoil. If the higher the field of view, the less visual recoil you will have. But at the same time, it's going to be a little bit harder to see your enemies. So I play on 120, and I recommend playing on 120. But if you're a little bit older and you can't see people, I'm getting to that point right now too, I promise you. I'm thinking about lowering my FOV sometimes. You don't have to play on 120 to be really good, and you can still control recoil very easily with the tips that I'm about to give you. So I would recommend trying 120 for the visual recoil, but if it's too much for you and you feel like you're going cross-eyed, that happens to some people, where you just like feel like there's too much on your screen, go down to 110, maybe 105. It's not going to kill you, but try what works for you. I promise you, on all my tips that I'm telling you, there's not just one way to do it, but just to understand why you're doing things. You can play on 105 and still be really good. You can play on 110 and be really good, and you can do 120. I've been playing 120. I like it a lot, but still do what kind of works for you on that. And then I do recommend the ADS field of view is affected. That actually is almost a must, in my opinion, in Warzone for the visual recoil. Very important. And then the weapon field of view is also very nice. And then, of course, while you're aiming, that first-person camera movement is going to be at least at 50%. A lot of casual players do not change this. You have to change this. This will make your entire experience of Warzone better. So, yes, that is the last setting that I'm going to show you guys. Very important stuff. I hope you guys enjoy this, and now let's get into the tips and tricks. Okay, so starting off with the first tip, we're going to be talking about rotational aim assist. So I've talked about this in plenty of videos before, but again, this is for everyone that's starting out in Warzone 3 that might just be completely fresh and new, who haven't seen those videos, or someone that's new to the channel. And what rotational aim assist is activating the aim assist so you can have like that stickier aim assist when you're aiming at people. So you can see right now that as I'm aiming people, you can basically lock on with controller. Aim assist is broken, and we all love it. So us controller players got to learn how to abuse it more. And the way you do that is by always be moving. So what I mean by that is your left stick is your best friend. So you can see now on the top right of my screen that you have my gamepad, which is my controller. And you can see that I'm always using this left stick. And the more you use your left stick, the more your aim assist is going to activate. If you were standing still and you were basically not using your left stick at all and you were just aiming at something like this crate, it's going to look like this when someone's running across. If I'm not using my left stick, he is actually just not dragging my aim assist at all since I'm completely still. And you can see that the more that I am aiming in and not using my left stick or moving at all, when he runs across my screen, there is no aim assist that is actually activating. So when you were completely still in Call of Duty and you were not using that left stick, you're not going to activate the aim assist, which is really, really important. But then if you see right here in this clip, that when he is running across and I am using my left stick, that there is going to be that aim assist pull naturally. Now, that is going to be the most important thing. So when you are moving in a fast action Call of Duty game like we play, you want to always be moving, because the more you're moving and the more action you are in, the more you're going to want that to rely on, obviously, so you can keep up with your enemies and track better. So rotational aim assist is very important, and all it means is just make sure you are moving around the map, using your left stick. And you can see right now that every time I basically shoot my gun, or if I'm holding a head glitch, I'm always going left and right. I'm always going left and right. So hopefully that controller is a better visual representation of how it looks. And make sure you guys are always using that, staying moving, and making sure that you're activating that rotational aim assist. Now let's move on to tip number 2. So tip number 2 is going to be recoil control. So every single gun that you use in this game is going to have a recoil pattern. And by that, I mean, when you shoot at a wall, you're going to see a recoil pattern, and then you're going to be able to predict that recoil pattern and then go against it. So while I'm shooting these bots right here, I'm going to be controlling recoil and activating aim assist. And every time I give you guys a tip, the next tip is basically going to lead into the other tip as well. So everything is very, very important to all collectively come under the umbrella of just Warzone aiming and how to be better. So you can see right now I'm using this MCW build. This gun doesn't have a lot of recoil. When I shoot it at the wall, if I don't touch anything on my right stick or anything, I just leave the controller completely still. You can see that when my aiming is just going to go straight up and to the right. So basically, when you're using the MCW, this is your recoil pattern with the 60-round mag. It goes straight up and then slightly to the right. So if it goes straight up and slightly to the right, what you're going to want to do with this weapon specifically is pull down and a little bit to the left. And you can see on the top right of your screen right now, when I control this recoil, you're going to see how lightly I touch this right stick to make that recoil accurate. So it goes up and to the right. So on the top right, you can see this controller. I'm going to be aiming in and I'm going to be shooting. Hold up. There's a bot pulling up. Got to kill the bot really quick. It's going to go up and down. I mean, down to the left. So I'm going to shoot it. And as it's going up, I'm pulling down. And as I'm pulling down, you can just see I'm barely pulling down on my right stick to keep that recoil pattern really, really tight, which is going to make you more accurate and going to be helping you hit your shots from longer ranges. So while you're tracking people, you're going to be using this left stick right here, aim assist, boom, and then recoil control. And it's the same thing over and over. As I'm doing this, I'm moving left and right. I'm moving left and right. If nothing pushes up, I don't see anything, obviously it reposition. And then soon the same thing again. I'm here, left aim assist, recoil control. And you can just see on the controller that every time I'm shooting, you want to be as light as you can on that right stick just to control that recoil and make it pretty easy for you. So hopefully that visual representation also helps you out with recoil control. And let's move on to the next tip. And the next tip is going to be centering. Guys, centering is the most important thing out of all the tips that I give you, because even with good aim assist, activation and then recoil control, if you're not centered, you're still probably going to get outshot or someone's going to shoot you first. And if you get shot first, you're probably not going to win the gunfight. And all centering is reticle placement. So you can see right here, the center dot on my screen is the center of your screen. It is reticle placement as well. There's another word for it, and a lot of PC players call it reticle placement. And you can see as I'm running around, this dot should always be predicting where players are going to come from. So if I'm seeing here, I have it right in the center of that doorway. I can see people on my mini-map right now or to my left, so I think he's going to come out of this side right here. He's not. Slide center. You can see that my dot is on his like chest level when I turn corners, and that's going to be important. So if I'm predicting here, nothing there. And then I have someone in this plane, so I'm going to slide here, and then boom, I'm right there. Every single time I'm running around the map, you can see that I'm not going to have to adjust my aim that much because I'm centered where they're going to be. So centering is very, very important. And you want to do it around like chest high to stomach high. So the natural recoil of your weapon is going to always kind of like, you know, pull up a couple shots. And then by the time you actually react and control the recoil, it's going to be around that upper chest to headshot area too, which is nice. But again, you want to avoid having to always like, you know, pull up and then start shooting, because if you have to do all of that movement, you're probably going to get outshot, or he's going to hit first bullet, and first bullet in Call of Duty is really important. So if I was centering at the ground, I have to pull up and then go to the left. By that time, I'm going to die in that scenario right there every single time, especially if it's not a recruit bot shooting at me. So you don't want to be looking at the ground. You want to be predicting where your enemies are going to be at. So if you're running around the Warzone map, you want to make sure that you are predicting exactly where they're going to be. If I was running at this building in Warzone, I'm thinking he's going to come out of the window. I'm running like this, slide canceling like this, just in case he peeks the window. I'm ready to fight. I'm not aiming here. I'm not aiming here. This is useless. But if I think he's going to come out of this doorway, I'd be aiming here. And then I'm sliding here. And if he comes out of this doorway, I would slide, and I wouldn't have to do that much of adjusting if instead of being down here, here, or here or something. So again, reticle placement and centering is all going to help your recoil control and your rotational aim assist a lot. So make sure you guys are practicing your centering as much as possible. Also, a quick centering tip with settings. So if you go to settings and you go to crosshairs and you hit show more, you can actually see that you can have your crosshairs on, which is important, which is always going to help your centering because it's literally a center dot on your screen. And then you want to have your center dot on. That is always going to keep that center dot there no matter what. No matter what, your center dot will be at the center of your screen, and it's going to help you a lot. And if you have a really bad problem with centering, you might want to make the dot even bigger. Some pros actually play with it on largest or larger, just so the dot's going to look something like this when I'm running around, which is really, really big, and then it could really help you focus on the center of your screen. So this is kind of like just like a low-key tip of how to keep your centering just more in your mind, even subconsciously when you're running around. This big center dot actually might be able to help you. I play it on normal, but again, there are pro players that are way better than me that have it on like the largest or larger scale. So it's kind of nice to have that too. Just something to keep in mind when you're obviously trying to work on your centering. Next tip that I'm going to give you guys is going to be a very small tip, but it's hip firing first. So this is more for close range combat when you are aiming. But now that you know what rotational aim assist is, centering is, and recoil control and all that stuff is, when you're up close and you're aiming, the sprint to fire speed is usually faster than your ADS speed. So what I mean by that, in order to get your ADS all the way up and then aimed in, usually your sprint to fire speed is faster than that. So when you were turning corners, you are actually going to be able to shoot from the hip and then aim in. Your shot will actually get off faster if you shoot from hip fire instead of obviously aiming in and then shooting. So instead of turning the corner, aiming in and then shooting, what you want to do in close quarter combat is jump or just, you know, turn the corner and use your right trigger first and then your left trigger, and you'll actually get 1 or 2 bullets off first. This is something that doesn't seem as important, but when you're using an SMG specifically or close quarter combat, even with an AR, I promise you, the more you slide hip fire first and then go from there, it is going to help you a lot more, because Call of Duty is a game of milliseconds, and that extra millisecond that you can kind of get, or that extra bullet that you get off before the other player, is going to help you win a lot more consistent gunfights that you kind of feel like you might be losing when you shouldn't be. It's probably because they're getting that first bullet off in literally milliseconds of time before you even know. So again, hip firing first when you slide close corners is actually super important. A lot of pro players use it, and it's something just to keep in the back of your mind when you're obviously shooting up in close quarter combat. So nothing too crazy to harp on there, but it will help you, especially with your SMG in your hands. And last tip that I'm going to leave you guys with is everything I just showed you guys, you're going to want to practice it. In order to practice it, you got to go to your Modern Warfare 3 multiplayer and private match. This is my favorite way to do it. Most pro players warm up like this as well. But once you go to Modern Warfare 3, you scroll over to the right, you go to private match. You can put this on any map that you prefer, and you can just kind of do this warm up so you're not frustrated while you're going into the game. A big side of Call of Duty and any kind of gaming, it's going to sound a little weird, but it is the mental side. If you're really frustrated and angry all the time, you're probably going to play worse. And when you want to obviously go into a game and play the best that you can so you don't get frustrated, you should probably warm up first. So in order to do that, you go to your private match, you pick free-for-all, any map of your choice. We're doing Scrapyard for this video. I would put this all the way to 40 minutes. I would put the score to anything that you want. I mean, it could be 1,000 points. It doesn't really matter. So for now, I'm just going to leave it at 90. But again, actually, we'll just do 1,000 just for the absolute max. Then you go over to gameplay. You do spawn ammo mags. You make it max. So you don't have to always have to try and find a way to, you know, die and respawn so you can get more ammo. And then, of course, you have the radars always on. That's just nice to know where the bots are. And then last thing, make sure health regeneration's on. In Modern Warfare 3, the health regeneration's not always on. I don't know. It's weird. And you can put bots or max health a little bit higher if you want to. That's something that you can do, especially if you're playing Warzone. I would probably up that to like 300 or the 250 mark. And then start the game after you add some bots. And adding some bots, all you go is to the top right of your screen, hit the plus sign, go down to add bots, add a bunch of bots, make sure you hit confirm. It confirms the bots, and then you start the game. Once you start the game, all I would recommend is turning your aim assist off, shooting, 30 to 50 bots without aim assist, then shooting about 30 to 50 bots with aim assist, and then you're ready to go. It could be any number that you want, though. It could be 10 bots, no aim assist, 10 bots with aim assist. If you feel ready, you're ready. But you can see, again, it just really depends on your preference. So I would go to controller, you go to aiming, you scroll down, and you turn off your target aim assist. And as soon as your target aim assist is off, you would run around, shoot as many bots as you'd feel like it, just to make sure you're really obviously, like using your raw ability to aim. And you can see right there with the extra health too, you're going to really have to track. So extra health is going to make it a little bit harder. And the more you do this, the better you'll get at just raw aiming. And then once you have this down, all you're going to have to do is just switch back to aim assist. And it's almost like swinging a donut, on a baseball bat. That was the analogy I used in my other video, which is very similar to this. And again, a lot of people like that, but it's exactly what I would recommend to really get your tracking down with a controller, because it's going to help you out a lot. And then once you feel that you are ready to go, you go back to your controller, make sure you turn that on so you don't lose absolute composure while you're playing the game, and everything's going to feel a lot easier. You're going to feel warmed up, and you're going to feel ready to go and dominate your opponent in Warzone 3 and have some fun. So hopefully this video helped you guys out, the warm-up and all that stuff. This was a very similar video to the one I've already posted in MW3, but this is for a lot of the people that are fresh to Warzone, that want to get better. And if you have not known about this channel or my channel, I'm always going to try and help you guys get better with tips videos, and even my gameplay, which are daily gameplay videos. I always try and talk through thoughts and just stuff like that to give you guys tips and help you get better, as well as providing as much entertainment as I can. So hopefully you enjoyed this. If you did, like, comment, subscribe, and all that. And as always, it's been your boy Crowder, and I will see you guys next one. Peace.